Well, happy Time Change Sunday, everybody. Oh, big God.
That's right. The person who walks in late in 20 minutes has to do something.
Gets to take a bow.
Has to take a bow and come up on the stage.
They can't cover like they do in the fall, where it's like, well, I'm here early to shop in the bookstore. No.
Yeah.
No, when you get here, no, you're busted.
You have to come here.
So.
You have to come in and recite the opening meditation.
Exactly. I
There you
know.
go. That's been good.
I know. So, do you know in Arizona, they have daylight saving, except in the Navajo Nation. And so that's gotta throw people off. All right, let us, I've learned all sorts of interesting trivia this week, some of which I'll probably visit on you in the course of the next little while. For now, we're just gonna relax into this beautiful day, the second Sunday in March. Spring is just around the corner. The full moon is tomorrow. And today is International Women's Day. International Women's Day. And there are activities, gatherings around the world. But some of these gatherings are being curtailed because of a fear that we have, because of an experience that seems to be happening in our world right now. And in our class yesterday, we addressed this. We took up the challenge in prayer to know that there's one life. That life is spirit. That life is all the life there is. And that life has never been sick. That life has never been contagious except in a good way. That life has been viral only in the transmission of good and kindly information from one point within itself to another. And anything unlike this is free to go, free to change, free to morph back into some sort of harmless form of reality. For people are built to hug, or at least shake hands. The people are made to travel. People are inquisitive. They love to explore. They love to face their world fearlessly. Whatever needs to happen to support this is now happening. And it's not happening yonder on some horizon, but happening through each of us. We each contribute to this, to a world that works. Sometimes that world works by simply being a staging ground for the next choice we make. We're just being safe and solid and dependent. We've come here to this place today to have an experience of such a world. A place in which to launch our dreams. A place of consciousness where nothing has ever been wrong. Nothing has ever been missing. Such a place is real. It is the most real thing there is. In this time together, something powerful and transformative is occurring in and to and through you, assisted along by words, music, hugs, smiles, and the energy of the group. So I invite you to be with your thoughts, your feelings, your sweet inner process, whatever that may be, on this simply beautiful Sunday morning as we rest together for a few moments, surrounded by this music. Universal love enfolds me, universal wisdom inspires me, universal spirit enlightens me, universal power encircles me. I am one and all is well. I invite you now to open yourself to the miracle working higher power and symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature nature by touching your chest with your right hand, letting my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it. It is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge.
I acknowledge.
Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I become ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words, I surrender.
I surrender.
Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who's ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive.
I forgive.
Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose.
I choose.
I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing this idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. And seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled, and gratefully speak these words, I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now in my mind's eye, I call to mind the face, the image of someone who's touched my life in powerful, wonderful ways. This could be a friend, a family member, a teacher of mine. It's someone who's not physically present with me in this room this morning, so I greet this being of light and consciousness, turning toward that face I see in my mind's eye and saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes to the world around me, turn joyfully to these folks here and say to each of them, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Hey!
Hey.
At 9:30, the name game came up. Or the Banana Fana song. Does anybody remember that? You sing it twice while you're washing your hands. Oh, I don't know. I know we should take this seriously, but no, we're going to send this back into the nothingness from which it came. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed touching my face until they said I should. It's really quite a thing. So we're going to fix that right now. And if nobody's going to make you a hug, but nobody's going to force you not to. So, you know, seriously, use your own judgment about things as time progresses here. We have a responsibility as a spiritual community open to the general public to try and do the right thing. So we're going to do the right thing. We're not going to give into it, but we'll do what we need to do. But today we're going to talk about, ironically, it being International Women's Day, material drawn entirely from the work of a man. No disrespect intended. And at 1 o'clock, we're going to have a workshop by Dr. Johnny Samples here. And she's going to tell you more about that when we get to the announcement time. But we're talking about the creative process this month. And the creative process is gender-free. It has to do, although it's often pictured as the relation between two genders. There's a better way to do it than that. And I got into a lot of back and forth with some people some years ago about this. Let's take it out of the realm of human relations and make it about gardening. because it's got a lot less of an emotional load to it, you know? If you plant a seed in soil and the plant grows and such. But there's a writer named Thomas Troward, who some of you are familiar with, and he was one of the leading philosophical figures in the early days of the New Thought movement, or the formative years of the New Thought movement, end of the 19th, start of the 20th century. Used to be able to say back at the turn of the century, but not anymore. The turn of the previous one. And he had a way of putting stuff simply, understandably. He says, for example, in terms of changed outcomes, think of the difference between a broom and a rake. Thought of the difference between a broom and a rake lately? The broom has straw at the end, the rake has metal tines at the end, but the stick is the same. So it is with spiritual law, right? How it tapers off, how it plays out, how it meets the world is what we mostly focus on. But there's a common denominator in all experiences. Your relationship with your best friend and your worst enemy, if you have one, is still a relationship. They exist on a continuum called relationship. The wellness of yourself and the illness of yourself exist on a continuum called health. The poverty that you experience, the prosperity that you experience, exists on a continuum called supply. And we just heard a song called The Absence of Fear, which exists on the same continuum as does the presence of fear. The absence of anything and the presence of something happen by degrees. And those degrees are interminable. They go on forever. Why this is useful to know is that when you're trying to create something new in your life, you work with what you've got. You don't have to jump the tracks to work with something you haven't got. You work with the same principle that brought you the experience that you're presently having, and you ramp it up. You speed it up a little bit. You jazz it up. And the vibration, as it increases, moves you into another place on the scale that you've never occupied before, at least not in the same way. And this makes it a whole lot simpler than if we have to invent whole new laws, discover whole new principles. We just use the ones that we have. A few weeks ago, I was sharing with you how we do make laws up. They're not really laws, but they all work through one law. So if I decide that the world is this way, the one law takes the decision that I've made that the world is this way, and it works on it. And it seems to reinforce itself as a law. And I go, there, you see I was right? I don't know, here's an example, like you can't trust other people. If you make that a law for yourself, a principle, I can't trust anyone. Immediately you start to kind of close up, right? You can't trust anyone. You will have a parade of untrustworthy people in your life. They'll be picking your every pocket. And you'll say, you see, I was justified. When in fact what you've done is use a universal law along very particular lines, and not useful ones at all. We decide how people are, and then we react accordingly as though people are that way. But the fact of the matter is, it's we who are determining subjectively the incoming experience. People are just how people are. The world is how it is. How is it? It's neutral. It's neutral. And neutral is another word for it's loving. Isn't that bizarre? It's loving and kindly. It's the most loving, kindly world you could possibly imagine because it leaves you alone to make your own choices. If it were all manipulative and stuff, like loving in the sense of kind of ick, you know, like, no, you don't do that, you do it. It's moving you around, you know, through all of this. You had to sit through music you didn't like and wear clothes you didn't want, and you don't like flowers much, but here's a whole garden full of, you know, all like this, and just kind of pushed you along through all this experience. That wouldn't be very loving of it, would it? It'd be controlling and manipulative. And even pleasant stuff, when it's controlling and manipulative, it creeps us out eventually. Instead, the world says, here, make whatever use of it you want. You want to be an extrovert, you want to be an introvert, You want to be a leader? You want to be a follower? A detail-oriented person? A big picture person? It's entirely up to you. You want to be one thing Tuesday and another thing Thursday? It's entirely up to you. You want to be all things in one afternoon? It's entirely up to you. And this is the purpose of life, the exuberance of spirit. Trower goes off on this, and Ernest Holmes follows close behind him when he says that what spirit wants is to enjoy itself. Now, a lot of us grew up thinking that what spirit wants, or God, if you prefer, wants from you, is for you to be sin-free. For you to commit no sins, repent the ones that you have, so that when the final gun goes off and you are called to account, you will not be found wanting. And you will be ushered into bliss in the next life, and all will be well, and you will live there forever with God. And there you are. A lot of people were raised with that idea. I saw a wonderful cartoon the other day. It showed somebody showing up at the pearly gates of St. Peter, and St. Peter said to them, your username and password do not match. Well, in metaphysics, we offer a different take on this. Rather than sin, there's just stupidity, okay, or brilliance, depending on how you look at it. And rather than judgment by, there's judgment from. There's judgment from. We are not judged by another. We're judged from within. We're not judged for our actions, but by our actions. Because every action preceded by a choice leads to another set of actions and reactions, all surrounded by choice. One thing leads to another, and we learn. Sometimes we learn the first time, and sometimes we learn after many times, and sometimes we don't seem to learn at all, which in itself is a learning. It's like, I know what I'm doing doesn't work. I know that I'm repeatedly doing it, and I shall keep doing so. And that in itself is a learning. It might put you outside a certain invitation lists and stuff, but it's still self-consciousness. Some people like to be eccentric, difficult, what have you. There's no one right way to be. And our only contention in this teaching is that you should know what you're doing. We're not about what you should do. We're about you should know what you're doing. Now, obviously, if somebody's doing something and it affects you, then you have every right to say no, or step back, or move away, or something. But when it is simply the self-contained individual being exactly how they are, it's nobody else's business. And people will learn, and people will come to it on their own, quicker, actually, than if we shove it at them and tell them how they really ought to be. Because we've been criticized lately in some quarters, New Thought teaching, because we don't have lots of rules. We don't tell you what to eat, what not to eat, or you can't drink, or you can't smoke, or you can't stand on one leg on rainy Tuesdays, or any of this kind of stuff. We don't have lots of rules. We don't have, really, the only rules that we have here are those of basic civility, to respect one another and respect one another's boundaries and stuff. But beyond that, it's up to you to discover your own creativity. God doesn't make up a lot of rules. It just enjoys itself. And I call it in itself, meaning no disrespect, but it encompasses all gender. Spirit enjoys itself through you. If you're happy, it's enjoying itself through you. If you're miserable, it's enjoying itself through you. I know that sounds a little rude of it to be enjoying itself, but it's expressing in your misery. Sometimes your misery, and you know this if you've been miserable, it leads you to a deeper place within yourself than just constant joy would. We hurt because we care. We grieve because we love. And spirit thrives in that sort of environment through us. It just keeps on keeping on being what it is. And how we engage the creative process is in realizing that we decide, well, how would I prefer to have it be? How do I like my life? Is my life working today? Am I happy and beyond happy? Because happy can be kind of static sometimes. Am I getting somewhere? Am I winning at life? Am I creating things that I enjoy? Are my relationships thriving? Is my body well? You know, this sort of thing. Do I have enough money in my pocket? We ask ourselves these questions. How well are things going for me? And if improvement could be made, what would it look like? And how would it feel? And we put ourselves into that picture very clearly. What would I put instead of this in place here in my life? How would I have it be if I could have it be any way at all? And typically, we're very vague about that kind of thing. We just say, well, I want it better, or I want this gone. I want to feel better. And somebody's used the example before. It's like having, and it really works for me, this one too. It's like having a headache. When you have a headache, it's a headache, man. Well, migraine, it's just nasal thing, or pine pollen. You know, what are you going to do? Well, when you have a headache, you know you have a headache, don't you? And you're like, I have a headache. And you're telling everybody you have a headache and taking pills or doing whatever for it. When the headache goes away, do you notice? No. Suddenly it's like, oh yeah. Yeah, it went away. Because we don't have a vivid picture for it. We don't have a real deep emotional connection to ease, such as we do suffering. And so when we suffer, we know we suffer. We tell people we suffer. We have evidence that we suffer. When we're at ease, it's like, then, I don't know. Well, you got to fall in love with ease. You got to fall in love with peace. There's another example. You know, they make war movies. They tell war stories, or war tales, and so on. And people say, well, why don't we have more peace in the world? Because war's more exciting. It's more emotionally engaging. Pulls us in, doesn't it? It's loud, it's heroic, you know, all of this. Peace is what? Basket weaving. Peace is a bunch of people sitting around, looking at each other. Isn't it great? Sun goes up, sun goes down. No, peace can be as engaging and as involving and as heroic as conflict can be if we put our imaginations there, and that's what's required. This woman, Jewel, who wrote this song, I've heard her when she was on tour with Sarah McLachlan in the Lilith Fair circuit 20 years ago. And Jewel lived in her car in Alaska. You know, Jewel had a tough life before she became the musician that we know and love now. And she poured her pain onto every page. Every note filled her pain. She could have said, people don't want to hear this. People want cheerful entertainment, you know, and all. And instead, she was real with it. And it made her a star. It made her probably millions of dollars, but it also helped people. It helped people. It helped a lot of women in abusive relationships and struggling single moms and stuff, and people facing addiction issues. It helped them, and it's helping them today. And 100 years from now, it'll help people when they hear songs like this, and then be like, well, I have fear, you know, but what else could I do? I could have a presence of power. I could have a presence of power. I could exchange the absence for a presence of something useful and strong. And so it is that in the creative process, it takes all that we give it and it looks at it neutrally. This is why Spirit looks at suffering neutrally. It doesn't grieve over stuff and, oh, you poor thing and you miserable creature and all like this. It's like, no, because I built into you what it takes. I built into you universal creativity. If Spirit had a personal conversation with us, it would go something like that. You are my beloved child, not only in whom I am well pleased, but in whom I am entirely represented. From the top of your head to the soles of your feet, you have everything built into you that I am. That I am. And so you are mighty to thrive. And through us in this way. It evolves its own creation. Because when things are peaceful and they're going well, and all, we sit around and we say, well, take these musicians, for example. They sit around and they play songs, and they play songs, and they play songs. And once in a while, somebody's going to say, there needs to be a new song that nobody's sung, that says things that no one's said, that I'm aware of, and they'll write something. And the people who read books, they read and they read and they read, and eventually they write because they haven't found the book yet that says it all the way they would. And so they have to write, and the artist has to create. Right, Kenzie? Yeah. I mean, you look at all the beautiful art of the world, you can see it now. Oh man, they've opened so many different galleries online now. So many different archives of artwork are in the public domain where you can get into these things. But you look at all of that going all the way back basically to the Lascaux caves and so on, and or the ones in Indonesia, and all the way up to today, and you look at it and you say, oh, beautiful art, beautiful art, beautiful art, and I still haven't seen what I would say. So bring me my paints, and I will paint the world through my eyes, through my subjectivity. Kipling had a poem called When Earth's Last Picture is Painted. It was a metaphor, But that time will never come. The last picture is painted, the last song is written. There's always more. And that creative impulse, that divine out-push, as Holmes put it, is what Spirit is up to through us. We engage the creative process every time we think, and especially every time we feel. And when we think and we wrap it with feeling, it becomes like the proverbial seed in the soil. It has within it everything that it needs. It goes into the creative fertile ground and it begins to grow. It drops roots and it puts up sprouts and it heads toward the sun and it begins to expand. Every thought, well, a lot of times we've walked along and we've just, like Johnny Appleseed or something, we've just strewn stuff, Christ talked about this as well, with the seed that falls on the fertile ground, the seed that falls on the rocky soil. We strew thoughts. He's talking about the same thing here. Thoughts, consciousness. And we throw thoughts into the soil and they begin to grow and we weren't aware we planted them, and there they are. And up come, in this springtime, little phobias and neuroses. Oh, look, aren't they pretty? Little phobias and neuroses, little weirdnesses of character and stuff that we didn't realize we felt, we believed, we judged ourselves and felt it and then released it. It's why they have you pay such attention to the release step in spiritual mind treatment. This form of prayer that we use, because it doesn't just taper off. It's not like the old songs just fade out. Release is a deliberate thing, or it ought to be. And when it isn't deliberate, it's still functional. So we take an idea and drop it into subconscious mind and have no idea that we're doing that, but we are. And the next thing you know, we turn the corner and there's the corresponding form. Again, nothing wrong here, but wouldn't it be nice to be conscious? Wouldn't it be nice to be conscious? And so consciousness building is the increasing recognition of our place in the universal creative order, that we're taking ideas and we're bedding them in the soil of the subjective, and the subjective tends to bring them about in form. So what I want you to think about, please, in the coming week, it's springtime, we're planting stuff. We're planting stuff now, not just for the rest of the calendar year, but for all eternity. Until you, of course, dig it up and plant something else, but wouldn't it be nice to get it right the first time? Huh? So what would you want? And if you want radishes, plant radishes. Now, radishes are great, but you don't want to live on them. A diet of entirely radishes sounds kind of id, They're kind of a garnish, right? Just a little bit of them. So, but the tomatoes, oh yeah. Spinach is good. Broccoli. You like broccoli? Not really. Cauliflower? You decide. It's your garden, man. It's your garden. You decide what you want to plant in that garden. And maybe there's some stuff you've never had and it looks weird. It's from another culture, another society. They eat this stuff and you've never seen anything like it. And they're like, you should try it. It's good. I don't know. Why not? Give it a row. One row. That's all. Remember when you were a little kid, your parents were like, eat this. With me, it was figs. Stewed figs. Bah. Stewed figs. Eat the darn stewed figs.
No thanks.
It's not how they put it. I came from a Frank family. Eat the stewed figs. I don't want to. But so that they could pride themselves on having been good caregivers, where we introduced the boy to all sorts of interesting things in his youth, you know? Okay? They're actually not bad. When you're a kid, you're intractable and you push back, you know, you get a whole different take on it. Plant a row of something unfamiliar to yourself and watch what happens. Information connected to that unfamiliar stuff will start to make its way to you. It's like you've added another subscription. You're tuned into another channel. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah. Tony, I told you, were you here last Sunday? No, okay. I talked all about you.
Yeah.
Nothing, don't be alarmed. The music that you gave us, and I hadn't even listened to it because it was just the day before, but I talked about this incredible gift of the music, you know. Was it 4 terabytes?
No, it's 30 gigs.
30 gigs. 30 gigs. Okay, I told him it was 4 terabytes, and everybody like, that's not possible. And I lied. So, okay, it's 30 gigs. All right. Anyhow, it's a whole lot of music, you know. When you have a song you didn't know, or an instrument you've not heard before, or anything like that cross your path, all of a sudden, you're signed up for lessons. It's the strangest thing. Stuff will come out of nowhere. You'll say, I don't know how to do this. Well, then you will. You'll have the opportunity to learn. You'll develop skills and capacities within yourself that you were not aware of at all. Spirit seeking to express itself through you never makes a mistake. If the information occurs to you in some fashion, it's yours to work with. Just know that. Know that in the coming week. Everything, this can either be creepy or cool, and we're going to look at it as cool. Everything that crosses your field of vision has something to do with you and your process. And your process. If it alarms you in some way, then you're up to be a healer. And you're up to transform it. If it inspires you some way, then fasten your seatbelt, get ready for the ride. So let's know together now there's one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit everywhere manifesting on this glorious day. And that one has built into us everything necessary for the fulfillment of our dreams, the expression of our souls, the enrichment of our lives. That one is present in the eyes of every other living thing that we meet. It's in every azalea, every pecan tree, every magnolia, every bit of wildflower bursting up on the highways of our state in this gorgeous season that we love so much. That one is in our pain, in our suffering, in our confusion. It's in our joy, in our gleeful surprises, all our birthdays, anniversaries, and a happy birthday to Carthel while we're at it. It's in the celebrations of our heart, it's in the night sky, it's in the depth of the ocean. That one is within every caregiver and every first responder and every responsible party on the planet now, working to relieve us of this experience of infection. And this one is in what comes next, which is a scrubbed world, a healed world, a world better off than it's ever been before. For we are Much is yet to be done. Much is to be celebrated. And as we look for the good and praise it, the good expands. Better days await. For this knowing, for the existence of this principle of co-creativity surrounding each of us, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is.
Reverend Lisa.
Which side would you like me to be on?
I'm probably here for the... I know. I know. Things loaded.
Clear evidence that the ministers are practitioners first.
Absolutely.
All right. I so enjoy being put on the spot, but as Jesse likes to say, we are trained professionals. All right. I encourage you to take a nice deep breath. Breathe it all the way down. And as you relax and release your breath, breathe in one more breath and breathe in spring. It's looking like the weather is going to be in the 80s next week. The flowers are blooming. Everything is growing. The trees have put out all these vivid colors of green. So I invite you to look within yourself. What have you planted? What is growing within you? What is getting ready to burst forth into all of the amazing colors that you are? Feel it, know it, be it, and know that the power to do so comes from an inexhaustible source that loves you unconditionally. And so it is.
And
So it is.
Beautifully done. Thank you. Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my
I
mind.
feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
and
it.
I love it.
And I love
So
it.
it is.
And so it is.
Yeah.